and then we will get started. Yes, Dimitri, I did use the schedule feature for this. Okay, great. You can hear me from Jacksonville, Florida, loud and clear from North Carolina. Great. I'm going to give it another like 20 seconds or so just to give people a little bit of time to join, and then let's go. Cool, Dimitri. Glad I'm not on screen, so I'm glad my screen is looking good and in good quality. Cool. So that being said, guys, we're going to get started here. Really excited to show you guys the basics of Chatfuel. I know a lot of you are already familiar with how things work, but this is just for people who, you can't hear me, D. Try messing around with your audio on your computer. It seems like everybody else can, so hopefully you can get that sorted out. Anyway, this webinar is going to be all about the basics of Chatfuel. I'm going to be talking about all sorts of different things, how you can start building bots today for yourself, for your own business, for clients, all that good stuff. But more importantly, I'm going to give you the framework on how to do this, and then at the end, we'll have about 15 minutes or so for an open Q&A session where obviously if anything throughout the presentation is confusing, you can get clarification from me on that. So that said, before we dive into the webinar, I want to explain just super quickly why you should be using Messenger, right? So we all know or should know that obviously on Messenger, when you're sending out broadcasts and messages, you get extremely high open rates relative to email. With bots, you can get anywhere from 60 to 100% open rates, whereas with email, you're getting about 20%. So that means with chatbots, with Messenger, you're getting 3 to 5 times higher open rates. And the same is true with click-through rates. With email, the average is about 5%. With bots, you're getting 10 to 20%. So imagine what that can do. You know, you're driving traffic to your bot, and then obviously you're increasing conversion rates, sales, all of that. Otherwise, you know, a big use case with Messenger bots is automating your inbox. Obviously, as a business owner, or if you're an agency creating bots for a business, you are getting spammed with questions all the time, right? Assuming you have a, you know, medium to large scale business, you're getting all these questions. With a chatbot, you can automate that, and I'm going to show you a little bit how you can do that today in this webinar. Also, you can create segmented subscriber lists, which is obviously extremely useful for retargeting campaigns and just sending out relevant messaging in general. You can also, similar to what I was just mentioning about automating your inbox with the questions that you're getting, Facebook is also pushing bots, right? They're investing heavily in it. And also, they recently rolled out this thing called Response Assistant. You've probably seen it where if, you know, you go to message a business page, there's these pre-defined responses or questions really, like when are your hours and that sort of stuff. And so basically the issue right now is businesses aren't taking advantage of this. People are sending those questions, but then when they're getting those, the businesses aren't answering instantaneously. So obviously that means sacrificing sales, leads, all of that kind of stuff. The other main benefits of using a Messenger bot, just real briefly, are obviously also you're getting more interaction and more personalization. You're providing more personalization than you would with email, where you can just use things like, you know, the user's first name, last name, stuff like that. With bots, obviously, you can pull in all this wealth of data from their Facebook profile, like their gender and other things, which is super useful for targeting, segmenting, and obviously, again, creating that relevant messaging. Also, more importantly, you can plug into Facebook ads, drive traffic directly to your bot, both in organic and paid ways. And then finally, you can also integrate with your existing systems, databases, CRMs, all these different options that you have is what makes bots so powerful on Messenger specifically. So that being said, you still can't hear anything. Okay, just real quickly before I keep going, can anybody else not hear me? If you guys can hear me, say yes. Say yes if you can hear me. I just want to confirm that everything's working before I go much further into this webinar. I will give it a second here. And then the next thing we're going to do is jump into the basics of Chatfuel, obviously all the different cards, plugins, all that sort of stuff. Okay, great, Dimitri. Thank you. So now let's jump into the basics of Chatfuel, right? What does it have to offer? So first thing that you see is obviously you'll log into chatfuel.com. Then once you do that, it's going to prompt you to log in with your Facebook account. Obviously, that's how you log into Chatfuel. There's no, creating a unique account. You simply log in with Facebook, and then essentially you'll see this screen if you create a blank bot. So what are all these things here, right? The first two things that I want to talk about are blocks. So think of blocks like building blocks, like pages on a website, right? On the welcome message here, you have, think of it like a website page. On the default answer, this is another page. And within these blocks, and of course you can create your own here as well by creating a group first and then clicking this plus button to create a new block. So blocks, again, think of them like pages on a website. It can contain different types of content. It's a container for all these different individual elements. So you can have text cards, right? You can have images, which I won't upload one from my computer right now, but you can have text, images, videos, buttons, as I can add one right here. Like I can say call us and then link to a phone number, 123-456-7890. So again, think of blocks like a page on a website. It's a container for all types of different content. I'm going to delete this stuff in the meanwhile. And similar to this conversation on blocks, what I'm talking about right now, the two blocks that every Chatfuel bot has is the welcome message here, which is the first message that a user will see when they access your bot, essentially. There's exceptions to that when you're using ref URLs and stuff, but I'm not going to get into that just yet. So the welcome message, first thing new users are going to see. And then the default answer here is basically what users will see if they type something in that the bot doesn't understand. So let me show you what this looks like real quick. This is the default answer. So I'm going to type this in real quickly. And now I'm going to go to the welcome message and click here to test this bot. This will allow me to do so in Facebook Messenger. And then once I do that, you'll see it says, hey here, which is the welcome message. Now let me say something like hello. And you'll notice, well, actually, I lied a little bit. So this is the Setup AI tab. This is basically where you can set up keywords and phrases for the bot to respond to. As you saw, there was already one by default set up for hello, so that was a bad example. But now that I deleted these, if I type in hello again, since that's not set up in the AI tab, I'm going to get that default answer again. This is like the fallback, what'll happen if the bot doesn't recognize what the user is saying. So that's the welcome message and the default answer in a nutshell, the two key components of every chatbot that you're going to make. Also, next, as I just mentioned, you have cards. So all of these are called cards, or I also call them plugins as well. You have a whole long list here. I'm not going to get into all of those, obviously, in just, an hour-long webinar, but they're extremely useful. So first, obviously, as you just saw, you have the text card. You can type in text. You can also use emojis as well. If you want to use emojis, I highly recommend using a website called emojipedia.org, I believe it is. And there you can copy and paste things. Also, next you have the typing animation. So this is obviously useful if you're sending big, long chunks of text like paragraphs, like I'll show an example right here. Obviously, if you're sending long, pieces of text, you want to give users time in between. So let's say that I have two blocks of text right here, or two text cards with lots of text. You obviously want to give users time in between to process that information. And my rule of thumb here is for each line of text here. So you'll see here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5. So for each line, my rule of thumb is using one line of text translates to 1 second in the typing animation. So it's a general rule of thumb that you can use. But I'm going to delete this text here in this typing animation. And the next thing that I want to show you is buttons, right? So you have a couple different ways to, and I know all this stuff might seem a little abstract now. Don't worry, later on we're going to go more in detail on how this is useful. But next, just like on a website, again, you have buttons which can link one website page, the equivalent, or one block in Chatfuel to another block. So let's pretend that we're a restaurant here. We can say, welcome to the restaurant. And then we can add a button here. And this isn't actually best practice. I wouldn't recommend setting up a main menu this way. But you could say something, or have a couple buttons. One could say, see the menu. And then we'll go here under blocks and we'll create a new block and we'll call that menu. And again, you can create blocks both from there and by clicking this plus button right here. I'm going to delete this block in the meantime though. And then I'm going to delete this one as well just for simplicity. And now we have a menu block. So if the user gets this message and they click this see the menu button, they're going to go here. And there you go. So now we could add something like a gallery, which is another plugin, another card you can use. And this allows you to have up to 10 items within this gallery. So this is like a scrollable gallery, a slideshow of sorts within Messenger that you can use. So I could say, pizza as one option here, salad as another option here, pasta right here. Obviously, again, I could upload images as well if I so choose, add subtitles, this is delicious, or I could add pricing, $12, and I'll say delicious again for lack of anything more creative. So again, you have these different options, and then you can add buttons here as well. So if you want to, add a button here that says, buy now, you can do that and link to a block where you can give more information about the pizza in this case and all that sort of good stuff. So I'm going to test this real quick just to show you visually what this looks like. And okay, so here we go. It starts a new dev session and it says, welcome to the restaurant, just like we set up in the welcome message. Then it says, click to see the menu. I do that, and now it's going to show these gallery cards. And I'm going to close that notification. So pretty straightforward stuff so far that I've shown you. Next, another way that you can connect to blocks instead of using these buttons on text cards is through something called quick replies. So quick replies are really useful if you want to create buttons that disappear after the user clicks them. So for example, imagine you have a liquor store, for example, and you want to ask the user, hey, are you 21 or older? And then you want to sort of get their gut reaction. And then, basically you don't want to let them go back and change their answer. So in this case, let's change it up a little bit. And let's say, for example, what month were you born? And cool. So what month were you born? And then we're going to just manually list these out. Let's say, January, February, and March right here. Cool. So there we go. So we have, these first 3 months here. And now if I test this, you'll notice when I click them, these buttons will disappear. So let's say February. And again, I can't go back and change that answer once I've given that. Of course, if we, retest the bot, I can do that. Or if you have basically like a loop in the bot where people can go back, obviously that's not true. But this is the basic explanation of this. Another very important thing that goes right along with quick replies here is something called a user attribute, right? So a user attribute, think of it, it's the equivalent in email of, creating a tag or something like that. It's a way to segment your users. So if I click here, the user attribute, I click that, and I'll say this, birthday month. So I'll call the attribute that, and now based on, if I go through and select February, for example, obviously it's going to save my information to that attribute. Basically, this is a way of capturing data on users. It's basically a way of capturing data about certain users going through your bot. So if I go back through, well, actually, let me show you how user attributes work. So, and there's two different types of user attributes as well. There's built-in ones, which come from the user's Facebook profile, like their first name, their last name, their gender. And then also you have these brown ones, which are created manually by you as the bot creator. So let me go in here, and first I'm going to use an attribute, and to use attributes, you use the two open brackets right here, and then you see this list. Again, the purple ones come by default from Facebook or Chatfuel, and the brown ones are ones that you create. So this is a text card that I'm creating, and I'm going to use the user's first name, and that's obviously a placeholder for the user going through the bot at this time. And I'm going to say, in this case, Andrew's birthday month is, and then I'm going to use this other user attribute here, birthday month, and then it's going to echo that back right here based on the one that I select. So I'm going to click test this chatbot, and obviously it says, what month were you born? I'll say March this time, and once I do that, it says Andrew's birthday month is March. So obviously it's useful in this way, but I want to show you a more concrete example of how this actually works. And of course, again, like I started mentioning or introducing quick replies, you can create buttons here with the text card, but you can also create buttons or link to different buttons based on the blocks that you set up here in the quick replies. So for example, let's say I want to create a new group, and this is just for organizational purposes, and I'm going to get rid of this notification, and I'll call these birthdays, right? So basically what my goal here is to send users to different content based on what birthday month they select. So let's say for February, we're going to send them to the February response. Again, I'll create a new block here, and I have to go back. It was a little buggy. Cool, and then I'm going to drag this down under birthdays just for sake of categorization, and I'll say, you know, something like February is the month of Groundhog Day. I actually don't know if that's accurate. I think it is, but we're going to go with that for sake of demonstration. So now, basically the way that quick replies work is, obviously if I connect a block, once I click that, it's going to redirect me here. And if I don't link these quick replies to a block, then it's going to just default to whatever message I have below them. So I'll say, you selected January or March. So that's basically how this works. But the other thing with quick replies and user attributes that's really important is, again, using them for the sake of segmentation, sending users to relevant content. So this is where the go-to block comes in. So what I can do here is, using this go-to block, this is a new plugin, and I can add a filter, and this will allow me to filter according to certain attributes, both ones that we've created manually, these brown ones, and also the purple ones that come from Facebook. So I can create an attribute that says, for example, let me get rid of this February 1, this connection to that block, and let's say no matter what birthday month I select, we're going to filter based on birthday month, and if the month that the user just selected is, let's say, January or February, then we can send them to new content that says, for example, you know, qualified. So let's pretend that, you know, we're doing some sort of promotion in the restaurant. If your birthday month is January or February, you can get a certain coupon or something. Then we're going to send them to this qualified block, and I'll move this down here. And I can say, you know, great, here's your coupon. Cool. So basically that's how that would work, but I can also combine multiple types of user attributes as well. So I could say if the user's birthday, the birthday that they select is between or either of these 2 months, and so I can add multiple user attribute conditions here as well. So if the birthday that they selected is either January or February, and let's use, you know, a built-in attribute that comes from Facebook, and their gender is male. So in this case, I would fit that criteria, and females, you know, would be excluded, and then we would go there. So let me test this real quick, and I'll select February, so I should get that message. Great, here's your coupon. And now if I go back again and test and do March, you'll notice that this time it won't actually send that. Let's retest, and let's select March. And obviously you see I don't get a message. Now the thing to mention with the go-to block here is basically it goes in order. So if you have another condition set up, so basically if I don't meet this first criteria, it's going to go to check this second criteria. So let's say now, you know, if gender is female, then we could send them to specific content. And if it doesn't meet either of these criteria, then, for example, if I was, you know, a male whose birthday was in March, then it would default to, you know, whatever thing we put below these other go-to blocks. So, for example, I could say, you're a male not born in January. I'll just say Jan or Feb for simplicity. Cool. So that's how that works. I'm not going to belabor that point, but go-to blocks are extremely useful for sending users to relevant content based on user attributes. Other final things that I want to show you guys here as far as these basic plugins that we're dealing with are, I'm going to create a new block here for simplicity. And other things that I want to show you are the user input plugins. So say that this is useful in like a lead generation scenario, and I'll talk more on that in a second. But basically, if you want to ask a user a question and you don't have a list of predefined options like months of the year or stuff like that, you want to use the user input plugin. So this is useful again if, for example, I say, what's your address? Obviously, you can't list out every possible address in the world, so you want to give users this ability to send you a message with whatever they want without triggering this default answer because the bot wouldn't recognize it. So we're going to use this user input plugin. What's your address? We'll save this to, you know, address. And then, oh, that's an attribute that's already taken up in Chatfuel, so we can't use that. I'll say address to for the heck of it. And now this will allow the user to, go here and enter that address freely. And then, of course, we could use what's called the send email plugin, for example. And we could send an email with this information to you or to your clients, anything like that. So I could say, new lead from, again, using that first and last name if I want, those built-in attributes. I could then send it to my email address. I'll just say abc@test.com. And then we could say first names, so in this case, Andrew's address is, and then use that address to user attribute. So basically what would happen, the user goes through here in your bot, and then any time that they complete that, they supply the answer to this question, we send you an email, in this case your email being this email, we'd send you an email with that data. Of course, I'm not going to go over it in this webinar because it's sort of complex, but of course you can also link this up to your CRM and all that, so you don't have to manually, take the data from your email to your CRM and all that. So that is the main stuff that I want to go over. I'm running a little low on time, so I'm trying to speed through a little bit. But the other thing that I want to show you, in addition to the setup AI, let me show you this real quick as well. So basically, as you kind of saw a little bit earlier, I can set up basic phrases that the bot will respond to users if they input these phrases. So on the left here is if the user says this, then the bot's going to reply with this. So say that I say, as the user, hello, hi, hey, what's up, I think that's all the greetings that I can come up with off the top of my head. Then we can have the bot respond, saying hi. So we could have a singular response right here, just basic text. We could also randomize. So if we just, every time the user says any of these things, we don't want to just repeatedly, give the same answer. So we can vary it up a little bit and say, different things, hi, hey, hello, all that sort of stuff. And then another thing, well, actually first let me test this real quick and show you how it works. So let me say hey, let me say hi, let me say hello. And in this case, it didn't randomize a whole lot, but obviously you see that variation in response. Also, if you don't just want to be limited to text, you want to use, images, typing animations, all that stuff, you can also link to a specific block. So I'm going to delete these responses here as text. And then, I could link to, say, the February block that we had if we wanted to. So that's basically how you set up AI. Obviously, you can do grouping and all that sort of stuff for organizational purposes. I'm going to delete this for the time being, though. And the other main thing that I want to show you real quickly is the broadcast tab. So this is kind of like in, MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, the equivalent of sending a mass message to your mailing list, right? You can either send a message to everybody in your bot, which I actually wouldn't recommend due to Facebook's policies. Obviously, you want to give people the ability to opt out, unsubscribe, because you don't want to be constantly spamming them. And in fact, Facebook will sort of retaliate against you if you do that and make your users mad. So you can send mass messages, again, which I wouldn't recommend, or you could also send messages based on different segmentation that you've set up. So for example, if I want to send a message only to users who went through that birthday part of the bot and whose birthday is in January, I can do just that. And then, just like you saw before, I can add, text saying, happy birthday. I could send this in the month of January, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to get into these more advanced features in the broadcast tab here due to time constraints. But this is how you would send a mass message to your bot users. And then the automate tab is here is basically how users will go through your bot on their own time, right? So these aren't restricted to certain hours or anything like that. It's just based on how the user freely interacts. So cool. I think I've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to go over there. Now I'm going to go to the next page of my notes here because I don't want to miss too much. And now I want to go over some of the main use cases of a chatbot, right? So for simplicity and cleanliness, I'm going to delete all of this content that we've created so far. And once I do that, we are going to discuss these two, I'm going to delete these groups. And also notice when you are deleting a whole bunch of blocks, it'll ask you to type in delete so you don't accidentally delete a lot of your content, which obviously I've done before and is not fun. So let's start from scratch again, and I want to talk about the two key use cases for creating a chatbot on Facebook Messenger. The first one I would say is marketing automation, right? So the ability to qualify leads on autopilot, the ability to have users fill out a lead generation form, retarget them if they don't complete all the questions, things like this. That's one major use case of a chatbot. And then also secondarily, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes, is customer care. So basically creating a support chatbot that answers frequently asked questions, that can connect the user with an actual human being if the bot can't answer questions, and things of that sort. So first, let's go over the marketing automation use case. So let's build out a sample lead generation flow here. And let's pretend that we are creating this bot as a marketing agency and we want to qualify clients, right? So let's, create the welcome message. Let's say, welcome to Facebook ads agency. Let's call it welcome to ROI agency, social media agency. Let's go with that. Welcome to ROI social media agency. And then let's click here to submit inquiry. And then we'll create a new block that is called lead gen flow, for example. And it looks like my spacebar is not working, but we're going to go along with it. Cool. So now I have this new block, this new piece of content, and I'm going to add spaces because it's bothering me. And so now we'll ask users questions to qualify them, right? So for the first question, let's ask them what's their website, right? And for that, again, we want to use the user input plugin because this will allow the user to input free-form text, and obviously we don't have all the possibilities of websites, so we want them to enter that free-form. So let's ask the question here, the message to the user, what's your website? And let's add the attribute here, website. Pretty simple stuff. Now let's add a typing animation here. This is totally optional, but we'll pretend that the bot is like a person, even though that's not actually best practice, but we'll just give the user some time in between filling out questions. And then the next question, let's ask, what is your budget, right? Very important question. So for that, we're going to create a text card this time. We could use a user input plugin, but let's say that we have predefined ranges of budget, right? So now let's say, what's your budget? Obviously, I'm not being very creative at all with the copy of this. And then let's use quick replies for this, right? Because we have these predefined options. We could use the buttons right here as well, but with the buttons on the text card itself, we can't, basically it requires a workaround to add a user attribute to the answer that they selected, so I wouldn't recommend that. And also in addition to this, you're only limited to 3 buttons here on the text card, whereas with quick replies, you can have 11 of them. So 11 versus 3 obviously gives you more options. So let's say, 1,000, let's say, $1,000 here. Let's say, $5,000 here, $10,000, and then, $25,000. So now we have these different options for the user to select. So we're using quick replies there. We're using the user input plugin up here. Then let's ask one more question and we'll say, what's your email? So for this, we could use the user input plugin again, but I want to show you guys a really exciting feature that we recently released on Chatfuel, and that is this user email plugin right here. And basically the advantage of this over the user input plugin is that it basically can pull the user's email that they use on Facebook directly into a button, so the user can simply tap that to send you their email address instead of manually typing it in. So obviously that creates a more frictionless process of lead generation. The user doesn't have to, exert as much mental effort when filling out this form, which is obviously good for everyone involved. So I'm just going to reword this text and say tap below to enter your email. And then we're going to save this to the email user attribute as well. And then one thing I forgot is up here for the budget and the quick replies, we have to save this to a user attribute, and we'll call this budget. Cool. So we have all of this filled out, and now I want to do one more thing at the end, well, a couple more things. So actually first, let's add another typing animation after the conversation pause here. We'll just click this plus button, add a typing animation, and we'll do it for another, half a second or so. And then after this, let's add another just really brief typing animation so the bot doesn't seem super, robotic. And then finally, let's give the user a confirmation message, right? Just like on a website, once they, press a button or fill out a form, we give them a confirmation message to let them know the process is over. So let's say great, and then we'll use that attribute first name to personalize. So great, in this case, Andrew, will follow up with you shortly. Great. So now we have that, and then one more thing that we want to do is use the send email plugin again, because basically if you don't use the send email plugin, your attributes will be in Chatfuel, but you won't really have any way of accessing them. So always you want to send any data that you gather either to your email address or your CRM, which we can talk about in later videos. Anyway, I'm going to say new lead from the user's first name. We'll send it to abc123@test.com again. And then for the email body, let's do, the name of the lead is first name, last name. And then the questions we asked are website, we'll save that, their email address, which is email, and then budget, which I'll put here to mirror the order of the flow that we did. Great. Cool. So we have all that information. I'm going to go fill this form out just to show you what it looks like, and then we will move on. So welcome to the agency. I click here to submit an inquiry. What's your website? I'll say www.chatfuel.com. And then what's your budget? I'll say I'm a high roller at 25 grand. And then tap below. Notice again it populates my email address here. So I click that. And then it'll thank me. Great, Andrew. We'll follow up shortly. And then in the background, of course, that's sending an email to the email address that I've entered right here, which is where I'll capture all that information. So that is basically how you can use a bot for lead qualification. One more thing, actually two more things that I want to show you here for this marketing automation use case is adding somebody, well, actually first let me show you the go-to block again. So for example, if we're trying to qualify a lead, say that we're giving these options, $1,000 and $5,000, we're giving those options to users, but we know in our heads, hey, if the user, has this low of a budget, we're not interested, and we want to disqualify those users without sending this email to ourselves and, taking up space in our inbox. What we can do here is add a go-to block after these quick replies and basically add a filter using this budget attribute that we set up. So budget, and if our budget is, 1,000 or 5,000, then we can send them, create a new block called like disqualified and create that, and then say, and we can rename this group, lead gen flow. And then we can say, sorry, your budget is too low. And then you could, refer them to partner agencies or something like that. I'm just going to go through here and test this to show you what it looks like real quick. And then I want to show you one more thing about sequences. So we fill out the website, and then for budget, we say $1,000, and then it's going to show us this different answer. Actually, that should not have happened. So that's interesting. Yeah, very interesting. That shouldn't have happened. Another alternative that you have is you could connect these quick reply buttons directly to the disqualified block, and then you could connect this one as well. Oh, it could be actually that I have this to process using AI, so maybe if I disable that. But anyway, for the sake of time, I want to show you one last thing here as well. So sequences. Sequences are super important. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, you can use the broadcast tab to send mass broadcasts to lots of users. But if you want to send broadcasts essentially or messages to users based on a certain time that they've interacted with the bot, for example, 24 hours after they've filled out this lead form, you can do that with sequences. So I'm going to first go here, and instead of a group, I'm going to create a new sequence, and we'll call this, follow-up sequence. We'll just call it follow-up sequence. So to get the user to get on this sequence of messages for the next, couple days. We're going to, at the end of this, or at whatever point when you want to subscribe them to this sequence, to just add a subscribe to sequence plugin here and then add a follow-up sequence, or click, type in the name of the sequence that you just created. And now what will happen is, again, in this case, it's set to a day, so 1 day, 24 hours after the user gets here, meaning they finish the lead gen form, we're going to put them on this sequence. So we can say, 24 hours ago, you submitted a lead form. Thanks. Obviously, you can get more creative, adding images, galleries, all that stuff. And then 1 day after this past message, you can send another message, right? So the recommendation here is to send a message every 24 hours, really, because Facebook has certain policies in place where if you go outside of that 24-hour limit of interacting with users, it can be problematic if you're sending promotional content. I'm not going to get into too much of the details with that, but one more thing that's really important to mention here is giving users the ability to unsubscribe, right? So on every message that you send in this sequence, what you want to do, this is how I would suggest doing it, is first, let's actually create a new block. Let's create a group, and we'll call this sequence subscription, or sequence settings. And on this, we're going to call this block unsubscribe, and we're going to say, okay, you've been unsubscribed. Again, my copy skills are not great. And then we're going to click this plus button and add the unsubscribe from sequence plugin, and again, type in the name of the sequence that we want to unsubscribe them from. So now we have to create this block first containing the unsubscribe stuff, and then we're going to add a button here that says, stop messages, for example, and then we'll link this to the block unsubscribe. So basically how this works from a high-level overview is the user goes through the lead gen form. If and only if they get to the very end of it and fill out all the questions, we're going to subscribe them to this sequence. 1 day after they get subscribed, meaning 1 day after they fill out that form completely, we're going to send them this message, but we're also going to give them the ability, if they click this button, to unsubscribe, and then they go here, it'll unsubscribe them, meaning the next day, 1 day after this message is sent, if we have more messages, they're not going to get those messages. Obviously, we don't want to spam them if they're no longer interested in receiving those messages. So that is sequences in a nutshell. Hopefully that was helpful and made sense. The other thing that I want to talk about really, really quickly is customer care automation. So this is basically taking advantage of the AI tab that I showed you guys earlier. You can set up keywords, right? So let's go back to, I know we've gone from like restaurant to marketing agency. Let's go back to restaurant for a second. So for example, the user could say, what are your business hours, hours of operation, business hours, how late are you open, all that sort of stuff. And then, assuming this is a frequently asked question, you could say, we're open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., for example. So now if I go into the bot and say, what are your business hours, and I type that in, it should respond with okay, so actually that was because I was in the email plugin there. And again, this is an example. When you're using the user input plugin or the email quick reply, basically it's not going to trigger the default answer no matter what you type in because you want to capture that data. So let's try that again. What are your business hours? And we should get the response that we just set up. Yep, so we're open 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's a really, really basic way to automate the frequently asked questions you're getting in your inbox, but you also have something called the live chat plugin. So there's a couple ways to deal with this, right? The first line of defense is the setup AI tab that allows you to set up those keywords and answers. If the user types in something that the bot doesn't recognize, obviously you have the default answer. So you can supply information here like, sorry, we couldn't answer your question. Click below to call us. And then this is a concept called pivoting, where basically the bot acknowledges, hey, sorry, I didn't understand that, but then you give the user, an option where they can actually get their question answered. So we could go into phone call here, add the phone number and all that, or another option that you have as well is just leaving the default answer blank. So on the back end of your page inbox on the Facebook business page, you can freely, type in answers yourself as a human, even if the bot doesn't understand and the bot's not going to interrupt that conversation. And then another final option that you have as well is what's called the live chat plugin. There it is. And this will allow you to still have a default answer, and you can put this anywhere in your flow, this live chat plugin. But basically this will allow you to still have a default answer, but if the user, for example, you could set this up as a specific block. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to create it here, and I'll say live chat plugin. I'll add it here, and live chat. And then we could set up an AI keyword that says, I want to, or just say speak to a human, and then we can link this to the live chat block. My spacebar, I don't know what's happening with it. Cool, so now let me go in and say speak to a human, and now you'll notice when that happens, it starts a chat with the operator. Again, it'll pause the bot, so anything that I type at this point will not trigger that default answer, simply because I'm in the live chat. So it's a great way to pause the conversation and actually speak with a human as well. Cool. So what is the other last thing that I want to show you? Okay, so I want to talk really briefly about the Chatfuel Pro plan and the different benefits of that, and then I'll answer your guys' questions for about 15 minutes, and that will be a wrap. So I have another bot open here with the People tab because due to Facebook's wonderful embargo right now, I'm not able to do that in the test bot that I was just using. So basically, what is the People, or I guess first I should preface this by saying Chatfuel Pro. The People tab is just one feature of Chatfuel's Pro plan. So Chatfuel Pro plan in general, what does it mean? What are the benefits? What do you get out of it? Because obviously Chatfuel in its current state is completely free. You can create unlimited blocks, send unlimited broadcasts. Basically the only caveat with that is, let me show you it in, I don't know why the persistent menu isn't showing. Basically the only downside of that in its current form is that you're not allowed to white label your bot. So what that means is, right here in the bot, users interacting with the bot on the free plan will see this create a bot on Chatfuel watermark, right? So if you're a social media agency or just a high-end business or even a smaller medium business who doesn't want this branding showing the software that you're using on the bot, the Pro plan, which you can access right here by clicking the Pro button on the left side, basically this offers you a lot of different features to optimize your bot, your relevance, etc. So some main features of the Pro plan are that obviously, as I just showed you, it lets you remove the Chatfuel branding from this. It's called the persistent menu. So it lets you white label the bot in that way. Also, it gives you, as you just saw in the People tab here, an overhead view, just like a CRM would, of all the users in your bot, right? You can see their profile pictures by enlarging them there. You can see the country that they're from, how recently they've interacted with your bot, when they first interacted with it, where they came from, whether that's, plugins on your website, certain, referral links, etc. And then also attributes, right? So you can edit these attributes from the People tab as well. So that's one feature of it. If you want to sort of edit things on the back end, you also have the ability to subscribe people to a sequence. So instead of, sending them a message interrupting their day, you can do that in the background by, clicking here and then subscribing them to a sequence. You can also unsubscribe them as well. So basically it just gives you more flexibility in terms of being a bot creator and having greater control on your bot. Of course, you can also create segments. So for example, if I want to create a specific segment of users, and this is useful when broadcasting, right? Because you can create segments without having to do all this filtering every time you want to send a broadcast. So let's say that I want to create a segment of users whose first name is not Andrew. So I could exclude myself from these broadcasts. I could, see this list of everybody whose name is not Andrew, and then save this to a segment right here, and then I could name that segment right here and say, users, or just call it not Andrew, right? So basically this gives you a lot of flexibility. Again, just like you saw with the go-to block, you can add different conditions as well. So if their first name is not Andrew and, their last name is, Smith, something like that, So you have different options here, and that's a big feature of the People tab. And the biggest feature of Chatfuel Pro and the People tab, I would say though, is the ability to, based on all this data that you have here, the ability to create and export a CSV of a custom audience. So I could basically export this list, or here's a better example. Say that I have, an e-commerce store. I'm selling things in my bot. I could create a segment of users who have purchased from me, and then based on that, I could create a custom audience. It exports as a CSV, which is perfect for Facebook ads. I could create a custom audience of that or a lookalike audience of that on Facebook, run ads targeting people who are, similar in the most ways possible to those people who have already purchased from me. And then by doing that, obviously I can increase revenue, increase sales, because I'm targeting people who are similar to people in Chatfuel who I know have already purchased and are likely to purchase. So that's another big feature of the Pro plan as well. So I think that's all that I have in terms of, going through the basics, the Pro plan, all the buttons, sequences, broadcasts, all that crazy stuff. In the remaining 15 minutes or so we have, though, I want to answer all of your questions that you, might have. So I'm going to, pull up my phone right here, and we're going to go through those. So I am going to start with the most recent questions and then go up. So Andy Brewer is asking how to generate the Messenger QR code. Andy, that's a really good question. Somebody in the community just asked this the other day, and my answer to that is it used to be that you could revert, because basically a while back Facebook introduced a new user interface for the Messenger inbox, which no longer allowed you to generate that QR code. So check in your business page inbox if there's a way to revert back to the old user interface, which allows you to get that QR code. If you can't do that, which I've heard you can't anymore, I would direct you to a website. It's called Humtech, HUMTECH.io. And they allow you, it's like a free service or software that allows you to fetch that QR code for your page. But I've also heard due to Facebook's embargo, you're not allowed to do that, or you can't sign in or something like that. So I don't really have a great answer for you on that, but hopefully that's helpful. My best advice would really be at this point, just wait for the embargo to end. Otherwise, you don't really have too many options, unfortunately. Okay, Nikita, what is the use of a segment? So Nikita, a segment, let me open this back up in the People tab. So basically a segment is a way to filter users in your bot, such as, people who are only female, for example, and who have purchased, something in your bot, and you could track that using user attributes. So the use of a segment is basically to filter out certain people in your bot, and then it gives you an easy way to send broadcasts in the future, as well as creating lookalike audiences and custom audiences like I mentioned. So for example, I have this segment Not Andrew right here. If I go to the broadcast tab and I pull this up, I can filter based on the segment. So if the segment is Not Andrew, I have a really easy way to just send out that broadcast instead of every time I want to send a broadcast, setting up all the filters again, right? So if first name is not Andrew, and basically if I have a lot of these filters, it can be a pain. So that's the main use case of segments. Patrick, trying Smoke Show Live to avoid live ban from Facebook. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. Jacob, are there no limitations in terms of number of broadcasts per month in the free plan? Yes, Jacob, that is correct. Currently, there is no limitation on the number of broadcasts that you can send per month on the free plan. Let's see here. Brent, really good question. What is the number one benefit of Chatfuel over ManyChat? That's a tough question. I would say at this point we have, and this probably isn't a great answer given most of you guys tuning in are beginners, but I would say the key feature that we have, the key benefit that we have over ManyChat is the ability to use what's called a JSON API plugin, which I'll pull up right here. And again, this is a really advanced feature. But this allows you to do things like I was mentioning earlier with connecting, data from the bot in Messenger to your CRM, whether that's Salesforce, ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, text messaging services, whatever the case might be. You can integrate with so many different services using this JSON API. You can also use it for custom scripts if you, are a programmer yourself or you know a programmer that can create these for you. For example, we just recently did a webinar where Pat Friedel from our Facebook community created all these different plugins like where you can ask for the user's birthday, save that to a database, then when it's that user's birthday on that day, you can send them a message, saying, hey, it's your birthday, here's a special offer, things like that. Getting the current weather dynamically from a service, getting scores for a sports game, getting currency exchange rates. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can do with the JSON API. So I would say that's the key thing right now. Andrea, can you explain a little bit more about Dialogflow? Yes. So I will actually post, let me show you real quick here so you guys can Google this. If you type in chatfuelapi.ai, Dialogflow was formerly called API.ai and then it became Dialogflow. This is a tutorial I wrote with Edwin Reynoso from our community, and it gives you a step-by-step guide on how to integrate with Dialogflow, which again is basically a way to improve the AI and intense processing in your bot. So basically it'll allow more robust AI for your bot. So yeah, I would recommend this. It's on chatbotslife.com, but if you just Google chatfuelapi.ai, it should be the first result that comes up. Okay, we'll take a few more questions here. Nikita, again, how do you use the chat room plugin and what is the purpose of that? So the chat room plugin is basically if you want to create a block where users all can go to interact with each other. So basically it's like the live chat plugin, but instead of an admin and just a singular user interacting, it's any number of users, I believe up to like 30 users in the bot, who can then chat with each other. So it is pretty buggy right now though, so I would not recommend using it, but that is the use case for it. So for example, say that like we have the Katy Perry bot that was built on Chatfuel. I think at one point they were using the chat room plugin, which meant that, all of Katy Perry's fans could go into this chat room and talk about, how much they love Katy Perry and all that stuff. So it's kind of the key use case for that is to connect users of your bot with each other. Andrew, awesome. That's why Chatfuel is greater than ManyChat. Well, thank you, Andy. Jacob, the community is the greatest advantage. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, Jacob. I also want to let you guys know about our Chatfuel community on Facebook. So facebook.com. Actually, I don't think I'm a member of it here on my dummy profile, so I don't think I'll be able to access it. But yes, you definitely want to go here if you have any question. Well, what am I saying? All of you guys are already in the community, but for people watching the replay of this outside of the community, the Chatfuel community is an incredible resource for you guys to take advantage of. It's so active. We have over 50,000 people in it. And it's facebook.com/groups/Chatfuel. Also, if you have questions about bugs or anything, I would send you to this, which is bit.ly/CF-bug-reporter. And this will open up our Chatfuel Bug Reporter bot, which will allow you to submit bug reports that get sent directly to our team. It gives us everything that we need to help you address your problem ASAP. So I would recommend that. And then also, if you guys have not taken the course yet, you want to go to bit.ly/Chatfuel with a capital C, and I completely spelled that wrong. This is a free, oh my gosh, I can't talk. I still spelled it wrong. This is a free 3-hour training course, which is, I feel like I went into a little bit more depth in this webinar in some things, but for other things, you can access this free 3-hour course, which is extremely helpful. So I'm told from everyone who's taken the course. Other questions, we have about 5-6 minutes left, so let's see here. Patrick. What use is, oh my goodness, I'm getting spammed. What is the use if we can't connect with a page to the bot? why are you trying to call me, Patrick? 1 second. So to answer your question, I have to mute my computer because I'm getting spammed. Patrick, can you please hang up? That would be appreciated. So yeah, so basically during this Facebook embargo, which means you can't connect bots to pages, while Facebook sort of reevaluates their privacy policies and stuff, you can still create bots in Chatfuel, as you see I'm doing here. You just can't connect them to pages. So once this ban is lifted, then you'll have the ability to connect to new pages and all that. Okay, let's see, other questions. Isaac, how can you use this on websites and or through Facebook? Great question. So I would recommend, as far as how you can use this on Facebook, one way is to connect to Facebook ads, which there's a lesson on in this course. I don't know if I can see, I don't think I can see all the individual lectures here. But yeah, there's a lecture, I think it's like the very last lesson or video on this course where you can get a direct tutorial really simply in just a couple minutes on how to connect the bot to Facebook ads. In terms of connecting the bot to a website, you can go to the Grow tab here, which I just didn't have time to cover in this webinar in depth. And from the Grow tab, you can click here to enable the customer chat plugin. And of course, due to the embargo, my page isn't currently connected, but I can show you what this actually looks like from this active page that I have. And basically, you enter in your website and this ref parameter stuff. I'm not going to get into that right now. And then it will generate code for you, and then you can insert that on your website. And basically, it's this pop-up in the bottom right corner of your website where people can then chat if they're signed into Facebook. And obviously, you can use that, which is really effective for the customer support use case that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so we have about 3 minutes left. A couple more questions. Ashakali, how can we generate a promo code using JSON or any other method? I'm not gonna, I can't really, I don't have time to answer that in a couple minutes because it's a kind of a complex question. But I would suggest posting that in the community because we have a lot of people that could help you with that if that's something that you're looking to do actively. If you're just talking about it conceptually, I believe it would require, you might even be able to do that natively within Chatfuel using the arithmetic functions, but yeah, this webinar I'm not focusing on JSON, it's just the basics, so I would refer you to ask that in the community. Let's see. Nikita, last question. How do you activate subscribe option from Google Search plugin? How do you use subscribe, digest, and other blocks with Google Search Engine plugin? I would direct you for that question because honestly, I don't use it that much. I'm not super familiar. I think if I Google site search here, yeah, I would recommend you going to docs.chatfuel.com or of course asking the community because there's some pretty in-depth guides here on how to do that. And then you also asked about the digest plugin. So yeah, you can find all this information on docs.chatfuel.com, which is another really important resource for you to check out. Okay. Jacob, is there a way of removing reachable users utilizing the free plan? There is currently not, Jacob, but we are working on that actively, so stay tuned. Bahman, how to use the if this then that Instagram integration. So we do have a built-in Instagram integration or plugin, I should say, which is right here. I don't know if there's a tutorial on, yeah, we don't have a tutorial on docs.chatfuel. But again, I just don't have the time to go into this and explain it. So ask that in the community and I can get that question answered for you. Or if I can't answer it for you, somebody else will. Okay. All right, cool. Well, I think I've answered as many questions as I can here. Well, we have one more here from Kareem. Will Chatfuel include intelligence? I don't fully understand what you mean by that. We have the AI, as you saw if you joined from the beginning. We also have the ability using JSON to integrate with Dialogflow, which I would recommend. But of course, if you mean in terms of like machine learning, that's not something that we currently offer. But again, like integrating with Dialogflow, formerly API.ai, will effectively allow you to do that. So those are all the questions that I'm going to answer in this live stream, guys. Thank you so much for joining. In conclusion, I just want to give you all these resources again. Docs.chatfuel.com, which is right here, a really valuable resource for looking through all these different articles that we have. If you have any sort of like custom pricing requests or custom features that you want implemented, you can email team@chatfuel.com, or of course post in the community, which is facebook.com/groups/chatfuel. And then you can also report bugs using bit.ly/cf/bug-reporter. And then you can also access this free Udemy course at bit.ly/C Chatfuel. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining this webinar. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of it. If you have any other questions, of course, post them in the community. That's where we are usually most active. And otherwise, stay tuned and chat soon. Take care, guys.